And welcome back to episode number 39. 39, I think, of
Yes.
Raise the Banner podcast. One of your two co hosts tonight, Mac Tor here, as usual, with Benny Ballgame Dearth. Ben, how you doing tonight?
Good. Can't complain. Back to the grindstone, but yeah, things are good.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, let's jump right into it. The Boston Celtics start in about an hour. They will face off in what seems to be one of the least hyped Eastern Conference Finals matchups that I've experienced in years. The Celtics have obviously been in the playoffs and have been in contention for at least the last 6 years. Uh, but they're in a spot now at the Eastern Conference Finals where I think they're overwhelming favorites. Um, they face a
Yes.
Pacers team that was the sixth seed. They finished 17 games behind the Patriots. Oh God, the Patriots, the Celtics,
If they
and
with 47 wins, if they're 17 games behind the Pats, I'll be ecstatic.
yeah, uh, yeah, they finished 17 games behind the Celtics in the standings. That's not incredibly shocking. Speaking that the two seed was 14 games behind the Celtics.
Yes.
Uh, they kind of cakewalk to the one seed mostly because their team is just that much better than the average team in the East right now. Like I said, the Pacers finished as a six seed. They're a young team. They're an aggressive team, led by Tyler Halliburton. Um, he's an All-Pro guy, but after that, they're just severely, in my opinion, uh, out talent. What's the best way to put it? Not enough talent compared to the Celtics. But what are your thoughts overall on this series and how you expect it to play out, and what you're looking for? What the Celtics need to do to wrap this up quick?
Yeah. I mean, in different ways, I think they kind of have to approach the series kind of like how they approach the Cavs series. I don't think they should take them lightly. I mean, Tyler Halliburton is a hell of a talent. And they're a young team, playing with a ton of momentum. They upset the Bucks in the first round, albeit without Giannis. And then came back on the Knicks. They had to win. They took care of business at home. They won Game 6, and then for all intents and purposes, they won Game 7, kind of going away. Brunson fractured his hand in that second half of that game, which made it pretty difficult. But when your backs are against the wall, again, young team. Not that the Knicks aren't young. But young team in Indiana, to hold serve at home when your backs are against the wall, and then to go on the road for a Game 7, when especially every game at Madison Square Garden, the fans have been chanting, "We want Boston." They did it the entire series, from my understanding. To go into a hostile environment, and win the way they did, even before Brunson got hurt and missed the rest of the game, speaks, I think, to the confidence that they're going to have coming into this series. Like you said, the Celtics are way more talented on paper. Not to go all cliche, obviously games not played on paper. The Celtics were way more talented than the Cavaliers, and yes, they won in 5 games, but I think they made it harder on themselves than I think they needed to at times. They took care of business. The series never felt like there was never a game where it felt like it was like out of hand. I mean, Game 2, the Cavaliers shot lights out. They were lights out from time to time, especially with Morris, Struess, and Mobley in Game 5. But I mean, obviously they need to control Halliburton, and I think if they can learn something from the Cavs series, it's that they just need to keep the foot on the gas pedal. The NBA is a game of runs. I get that, but like Cleveland, Indiana's not a team that you want to let hang around. Yes, they're more talented, but I don't think that they should sleepwalk through the series. I think that they should just kind of grab the bull by the horns, take care of business, show why they're an overwhelming favorite. For what it's worth, I think they're a plus 900 to win the series. I'm sorry, a minus 900 to win the series. My mistake. Uh, Pacers are a plus 600, as you mentioned, overwhelming favorites. I think they're a 10.5 point favorite in Game 1 tonight. I think that Tatum and Brown need to get going. Porzingis still isn't ready to come back yet. My guess is, the earliest you'll probably see him in the series is game 3, maybe game 4. But I think they just need to prove that they're the better team, not just walk onto the court and think they're the better team. They just need to go out and dominate. And I'm not saying they have to win by 20. I know that I've said that before, kind of off air, like that they should be winning games by more points. But it's more like the style of play, right? Like they just need to go out, dominate, you know, make the shots they're supposed to make, take advantage of mismatches, and as long as they play their game on defense, I kind of see this going the same way as it did against Cleveland. I have the Celtics winning in 6, but I'd like them to be a little bit more consistent, especially against a team who's young, well coached, and they're coming off momentum of the fact that they just played Game 7 a couple of days ago, whereas the Celtics have been off for almost a week. So, you know, play in front of your home fans. They haven't really done that well the last handful of years. They oddly, I want to say they're right around 500 at home, and on the road they're dominant on the road. I think they're like 18-6, 18-7 on the road in the last 3 years in the playoffs, I think it was. So just go out, be dominant, and just prove why you're the number 1 seed. For take care of business at home.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part you hit it, the nail right on the nail on the head. Oh God, I'm off tonight. But no, I mean they have so much more talent than this Pacers team, and even the Pacers with adding Siakam to the mix this year. He's their leading scorer so far in the playoffs. I think he's around 20 points a game, 21 points a game. Uh, they have a decent big three with Siakam, Halliburton, and Turner. I remember I saw a thing this week that the Suns, the Pacers tried to trade Turner for DeAndre Ayton a couple years ago, and it was vetoed. And the Suns coach at the time was Williams. I forget his first name off the top of my head. And he wanted the trade done. And the GM, which was James Jones, I believe, said no. Then Williams got fired, and then they traded DeAndre in the next offseason. And they kind of had to dump him to Portland. So it was interesting hearing about that. But I mean, in terms of the Pacers, yeah, I mean the Celtics will have the talent, even like the talent edge, even without Porzingis. And it really comes down to this series. I would be genuinely shocked if the Celtics lose this series. So really, it comes down to are they going to mess around? Is it going to take 5, 6, 7 games, or can they put their foot on the pedal and take care of business quick, where it lasts 4, maybe 5 games? And it really comes down to, I don't want to call it laziness, but being narrow-minded in their offensive approach, in the sense that when they
Yeah.
play their game, when they play with ball movement, with consistency, with the flow offensively, everyone's moving. We're not just pushing people aside and playing iso ball. We're not just heaving up threes to heave up threes. When they move the ball consistently, excuse me, they are literally unstoppable as a ball club.
Yep.
They can beat any and every team with a general ease for the most part. So it really it just comes down to, what are they going to do on their own? So if they want to dick around and play their iso ball early in the series, and rely on these one-on-one situations and not team basketball, and go, and we saw it in the Cleveland series, and I know that's what you were personally a little annoyed by offensively, was they seem to just be like, move the ball, stop playing iso, stop heaving up threes, like just to throw them up.
Yeah, it was, and it's more the contested 3, right? Like, especially early in the shot clock. And I get that that's the modern NBA, right? Like, Phil Jackson's not on the sidelines drafting up plays and running the triangle offense. Like, that doesn't happen in today's NBA. I feel like that's why you don't see a ton of guys, ton of X's and O's guys. They're just, you know, outside of maybe Spolstra, like how many guys actually draw up plays in the NBA anymore? It's a lot of like, here's the offense we run, get the ball in the hands of your playmaker, your best players, and just let them go to work. I just wish they'd be more intelligent with how they approach shot selection.
Yeah, no, I mean it's really again. It's just, I think I don't want to use the word laziness, but like I like it's one of those situations where this team is so talented where they when they don't play the game that they can play, it's more frustrating than anything else because
Right.
you know it's there and you know they can do it if they just focus on that and stop. They'll get into lulls in the game where you go down. There's been 10 straight possessions where they've either played an ISO ball where it's one-on-one driving to the lane, or they took an early three and they're not moving the ball consistently. If they're gonna do that, and like I just said, if they're gonna do that, they're gonna put themselves in a situation where they're just unnecessary, difficult games, and they could win in 4 or 5, and they still don't play that great because I think that much more talented than this team. But they can make it so, I genuinely think that they can make it so that, the fourth quarter comes and Tatum and Brown and Horford and Derek White aren't playing, into the final minutes of the game because they put their foot on the gas pedal and they overwhelm the Pacers team from start to finish and basically showed who they are as a Celtics team. And if they could do that, this series will wrap up in 4 or 5 games. It'll be same situation as the last two series where maybe there's a game where the Celtics shoot horribly like they did in game 2 against Cleveland, or they face a situation where they lost to Miami and Miami shot 53% from deep. Uh, I'm just it's really all on them. If they lost this series, it would be uh, as big of a failure of a series. This is bearing like everyone stays healthy. Like if Tatum goes down in the first 10 minutes of this game one, like obviously things could change. But for how the team currently stands, if they lose this series, I mean, it would be as big of a failure as we've seen in years. They're the best team by far in the East. The presumed biggest threat in the West was beat out by the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yep.
So I think no matter who they play in the finals, if they make it there, obviously, the Celtics will be pretty heavy favorites. I would take a guess and say you said that minus 900 for the Pacers series to win the Pacers series.
I'll bring it back up, but I think that's what it said.
If that's
Yeah.
the
So the,
case,
the Celtics are minus 900. Pacers are plus 600. Oh, here we go. They do have futures. So if it's Celtics Mavericks, they're a plus 280. I'm sorry, a minus 280. If it's Celtics Timberwolves, they're a minus 235.
okay, so I would have guessed it was even higher. I would have said it. I would have guessed it was like minus 350 versus the Wolves and like minus 325 versus the Mavericks. But they're less favorites against the Mavs.
No, they're a bigger favorite against the Mavs.
Oh, okay, then I heard you wrong. All right, yeah. I
So
mean,
Mavericks, they're a minus 280. The T Wolves is a minus 235.
okay, yeah. I mean,
And
it's
for what it's worth, both the Timberwolves and the Mavericks are bigger favorites if it's the Pacers that win the East. The Mavs would the Celtics have the worst odds of any of the potential um,
yeah.
NBA Finals matchups.
I
If that
threw money on. It was game. I think it was after game 6. Uh, I got the Celtics Wolves finals matchup at like plus 4 or 500, and so I put $30 on that, and if it'll be like I think 150, 180, something like that.
oh
Uh,
for the matchup.
yeah, just if they face off in the finals. So I'm obviously kind of liking that bet to say the least at the moment. I think the Wolves will come out of the East. That being said, excuse me, come out of the West, man, I would love a Kyrie Boston finals matchup. That would feed families for the media,
It really,
and
it really, it really would.
yeah,
Um,
and it would bring some like extra juice to a finals matchup that I think is going to be a little underwhelming of a finals.
so Celtics Pacers, the total games. Um, so the over under right now is 5.5. So the over 5.5 games is a +45. The under is a -170. Um, the Mavs T Wolf series, the over under is the same, and the over 5.5 is -160.
Who's the favorite in that series?
Minnesota.
Yeah, that's what I thought. All right.
It's close. They're a -170. Dallas is a +145.
Yeah, I mean certainly a lot closer than the Mavs and the Pacers and the Celtics. I mean
100.
again, like for this team, like I would for entertainment purposes. Actually, I would think for both ends of the spectrum, I would rather play the Mavs because I think it's an easier matchup and because I think the Celtics in the Kyrie drama would be great, storylines and conversation.
Yeah, the pure
Um,
entertainment value would be through the roof. And just to backtrack a little bit, I know you had brought up Siakam being the leading scorer, so I just brought the numbers up. So Siakam is their leading scorer, and he trails in terms of teams that are still alive in the postseason. Um, Anthony Edwards, I'm sorry, Shy Alexander is the no, they're gone. Hold on, Anthony Edwards is the leading scorer remaining in the playoffs at 29 points a game. Luka's at 27. Then you have Tatum and Brown, who are at 24 and 23 respectively, and then you have Siakam, then Halliburton, Carl Anthony Towns, and then Derek White. So certainly some scoring to be had. Only Siakam, Tatum, Brown, um, Luka, and Edwards are over 20 points a game. Halliburton's at 18.8.
yeah, I it's just the big picture for me in facing going into the finals, and again, this is obviously presuming that they beat the Pacers because they should.
Yes.
Is Minnesota if Porzingis isn't healthy, which I think we hope he will be, but
Yeah, I mean, I would say if he doesn't play in this series, now granted, like put an asterisk next to it, right? Like if the Celtics just blow doors and sweep Indiana, then I think that argument kind of goes out the window a little bit. But if this series goes, to 5 games and beyond and is competitive, and you're not seeing Porzingis on the floor, I think that's a bad sign. Um, again, if they just go out and dominate, even if it's like they dominate the first three and then they look at it and go, well, there's no point really in rushing Porzingis back. Even if they win it in 5, but if they're dominating the series, it's really hard to say. But I think that if it's a competitive series and you're not seeing Porzingis, that might be a problem.
yeah, it's tough to gauge exactly how they feel because we talked about it last week on the podcast where if the Celtics, if they go up 2-0, I don't want to see Porzingis game 3. If it's 1-1 and Porzingis is ready to go, maybe you bring him back. If they're up 3-0 and Porzingis is ready to go, okay, maybe bring him back for 15, 20 minutes of the game, not even 10 to 15 minutes, so we can get his legs underneath him ready for the finals type of situation.
Yes.
But in terms of the finals, they will need him. Obviously he's a great player. He helps his team significantly. On the defensive side of the ball, they could use his size and length. And offensively, he brings in a basically an element to their offense that they lack without him. The ability to score down low more consistently, the ability to play the pick and roll, the ability to shoot deep. Still, he's an all around menace when he's healthy.
Yes.
If they face Minnesota, in Porzingis, whether he's not there, whether he can't come back yet, or he re-injures himself, they will be in for a dogfight.
Yes.
It will be very difficult to face Minnesota without Porzingis and facing Gobert and Cat. Not to mention you got Anthony Edwards there, who is coming into being
A superstar.
a superstar. Yeah, I mean, 22 years old, he's becoming. He arguably could be the next face of the NBA in terms of just like the guy that they push
Yeah.
to the top of the mountain. But they need to, if they don't have Porzingis, they're going to be in trouble. And I think they would still be favorites against Minnesota, but to face those two big men without Porzingis would be a pretty daunting task. Again, so the Celtics would have the advantage probably in the front court still, with Brown, Tatum, Holiday, and Derek White. But in the back court, like, excuse me, I'm going reverse. In the front court, the back court, they would be good. In the front court, they would be significantly outmatched.
Yes.
You can't have Horford and Cornette against Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns and expect anything but bad things to happen.
I mean,
Uh,
luckily for us, Gobert is not much of an offensive threat. I think he's only averaging like 12 or 13 points a game.
yeah, but
But
even on the
but
on
but
the boards
right, but
and
on the boards, I think
defensively,
he's averaging a double double. Karl Anthony Towns is close to a double double. I don't think he's at 10 boards, but he's pretty damn close. And I think he's averaging 18, 19 a game. So I mean, you figure if they go with their averages, that's essentially 40 points, 20 rebounds a game between the two of those guys on a night in, night out basis. That without Porzingis, you don't really have anybody that's going to stop him. I mean, Horford could probably slow him down every once in a while, but you're not stopping those two guys if you don't have Porzingis available.
yeah. And so without Porzingis, I mean, I like I said, I would still expect the Celtics to be favorites. I would still expect them to win in maybe 6 games. But this team without Porzingis facing Minnesota, they'll be in for a fight. It will be a tough series, and they'll be in a situation where the championship that everyone's reaching for will be significantly in question. If they face the Mavs, even without Porzingis, I think they can win in 5 or 6 games. With Porzingis, I comfortably think that they should just outmatch Minnesota. Um, I think Minnesota may get a game. I mean, excuse me. Oh God, between the word Minnesota and the Mavericks, they're tossing me up.
And
Uh,
just call them the Minnesota Mavericks. Call it a day.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But facing, I mean, the Mavericks with Kyrie and Luka, like, yeah, they can get hot a game or two, where they steal a game, but in a 7 game series, I fully expect the Celtics that they will be able to overmatch them with or without Porzingis.
Fair.
Yeah. So I mean, it's we don't need to go around in circles of what we expect. I think I use what's your general prediction for the Pacers series?
Um, I don't. I mean, if I was going to pick something, I mean, I would say 5. I think that's a solid number. I mean, that's probably what they should do. I mean, I have it in 6 just because. I mean, yes, the Celtics have more talent on paper. They just don't always show up on a consistent basis and prove that they're the better team. Um, I would, you know, I mean, if you're going to go with consistency, the Celtics will probably split at home. Then they'll take both games on the road. And then it just really depends on whether or not Indiana can come out and avoid losing on our home court. The first 2 series, they won game 1, lost game 2, and then they won games 3, 4, and 5. That's happened 2 series in a row. I mean, funny if it would happen again the same way. Um, but I think that they've got 3 good players, as you mentioned, in Siakam, and Turner and Halliburton. It wouldn't shock me if it goes 6. 5 feels like kind of a safe bet, but I think Indiana can give them a fight. I mean, I would expect 5 or 6 games. A sweep, while I would be thrilled, would be surprising. And I'd be severely disappointed if it went seven.
Yeah, I mean, 7 games, I think everybody would be looking and saying, like, that took too much. Obviously, if they lost, that would be even more ridiculous. I wouldn't be entirely shocked by a sweep. Like I said, I think this team is just in some ways, I expect a sweep because I don't think that they should lose a game because I think they're just significantly more talented than these teams.
Yeah, like
That being,
they should sweep Indiana. I just don't think that they would because they haven't like they realistically
yeah,
they should have swept Cleveland too.
yeah, in Miami. That
And
being said, like
yeah,
I'm also a realist in the sense that I know a team can get hot one game and shoot lights out. Like this is the NBA. Even if a team has more talent, like if Tyler Halliburton or Siakam or Miles Turner or TJ McConnell, like they get on a roll and they start, they have a big night where they shoot 7 for 10 from deep and the team shoots 50% from deep as a whole. Like, you can lose a game like that. And
yeah.
any, it doesn't matter who you're playing in the NBA, you can lose a game like that.
Yeah,
Um,
if guys are just shooting lights out, I mean that's what made Game 5 so close. Marcus Morris and Mobley. Was it Marcus Morris? Yeah, and Mobley were just lights out from the floor. Strus did a little bit, not too much, but I mean, anytime Morris chucked it up, it just went in. It felt like. So yeah, I mean, if you run into something like that where a team just shoots like 60%, and it can happen. I think Minnesota shot or Indy, I forget. There was one of the games in Game 7. I forget if it was Indiana or Minnesota, shot 67% from the floor to win. So like
yeah.
if you run into that, like that's just it. Guys just if they can't miss, they can't miss. But yeah,
Yeah, yesterday on the golf course. I was listening to this guy talk about how he thinks that the NBA is rigged because he's like, how do teams go on 15-0 runs and then the next team goes on a 15-0 run and it's just back and forth. He's like, how is that real? And he's like, how do these like one game one team wins by 20 and the next game the other team wins by 20? It's all just rigged for betting and all that blah 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 blah. And I'm like, teams can get hot. Like the NBA is the NBA. Everybody in the NBA that plays in the NBA is in a general sense filthy at basketball.
yes,
like like even the worst NBA player would unbelievably dominate the average basketball player,
yeah, like
mostly because of just their size.
yeah,
So like
Matthew Dellavedova could beat anybody, like dominate anybody off the streets one on one. Like the other guy just would never score, and he's nothing but a swing bench player who just happened to find a role with a Cavs team a handful of years ago. But like guys like that would dominate any like guys like that would make Caitlin Clark look like she's never played basketball in her entire life, and
yeah,
she was the number one pick in the WNBA draft.
yeah. And so these guys can get hot, and you can run into a situation where we're seeing where that like Minnesota. I mean, God, Miami shot great in game 2. And vice versa,
Yeah,
where I think in Cleveland against Cleveland in game 2, the Celtics just really didn't have it. They weren't shooting the ball that well,
and Cleveland did.
and yeah, in Cleveland shot. They didn't shoot like so much lights out, but they shot well, and the Celtics shot bad. So when you have those combinations, usually they're within a range of each other that is a little bit more, close. So when you have them further off of the spectrum, yeah, you're going to lose a game like that. But I mean, that's just basketball. Like I said, I'm if they go to 5 games, I'm not going to be looking at this series and saying, well, like that was embarrassing because they only won in 5. If they go to 6, we'll be looking at things a little bit, probably a little bit worrisome, depending on exactly how the series goes. But just to kind of finish it off here, like everything's in front of them of how they want to control this series. I think that if they want to finish this game and this series in 4-5, it's right there for them to do it. It's how focused are they going to be. This game 1 that starts up in about a half an hour will be interesting because, like you said, the Pacers just came off a Game 7 win a few days ago. Emotions are high, energy is high. The Celtics have been off for close to a week. So the
Yeah,
Celtics are going to come out flat and the Pacers come out with energy. The Celtics going to come out with energy, and the Pacers are going to look a little tired or fatigued? We don't know, but I think it's very important for the Celtics to set the standard from right off the tip off and show that they don't put any type of confidence in this Pacers team that they can hang around and be a competitive team against the Boston Celtics in this series.
Yeah, I think that they need to come out and they need to play their brand of basketball. I know it's difficult; they can't play their full brand, obviously, because Porzingis is still sitting on the sidelines resting. But I think that if Tatum and Brown can get going, and Derek White can knock some from deep and be a facilitator, I think that they need to come out and have a strong start to the first half, and just remind the Pacers who the Celtics are. It doesn't matter that the Pacers are coming off an upset series win over the Knicks, and just kill any momentum that the Pacers have, to kind of take the wind out of their sails, so to speak, and keep the momentum on our side of the court.
Yeah, yeah. But all right, let's transition. I wanted to talk. We'll touch a little bit on the Boston Red Sox. They won the last two games against the Rays. They're exactly 500 at 24-24. They're playing right now against the Rays down in Tampa. They're down 2-1. But
yeah,
the
Paredes
news.
had a 2 RBI single in the first.
Yeah, the news I really want to get to is Garrett Whitlock, and that is that he looks that he is going to be out for the remainder of the year. In what it's just overly frustrating situation where that he was coming back from injury and dealt experienced tightness in his elbow, and it looks like he has some type of tear in his elbow. Early indications where it might not need full Tommy John. If that's the scenario, that's obviously ideal. Maybe he gets the brace surgery that both Story and Giolito got. If that's the situation, he should be back for the start of the 2025 season. If he needs full Tommy John, then he's probably out for at least half of the 25 season. Nevertheless, he has dealt with injuries basically since he got here. I know you and I have been vocal about what we think the best role for him was. I've always felt like it was in the bullpen. I didn't want to shake things up. He was starting to prove me wrong. He looked pretty damn good in the rotation, this year before his injury. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword right now, where you say, like, was the injury caused because he's not durable enough to be a starter? And so that's kind of my question to you is what do you make of this injury? Where do you see him long term here for the Red Sox? And do you think that being a starter is what the issue is here for him?
So I don't know if the injury is an endurance issue. He came up through the farm system as a starter. Not our farm system. He was a Rule 5 pick from the Yankees, but he came up through the farm as a starter. He was not a bullpen guy in the Yankees farm system. And he tried to stretch out on numerous occasions to be a starter with us, but early on, this kind of almost feels like Papelbon 2.0, where he was a starter, wanted to be a starter. His early role was bullpen related. He tried to become a starter. It didn't work. And he went back to a closer, and he was a dominant closer for 5, 6 years, ish. I don't know if that's the exact number. He had
Might be even longer than that. But yeah.
I meant like actual dominant. Like I know he went to Philly. He wasn't the same. It feels like he wasn't the same when he went to the Phillies. It almost feels the same. I don't think Papelbon got hurt when he tried to be a starter. I just don't think he was very good, so they just moved him back to the bullpen because he was much more dominant in the pen. So I don't really know if it's a bullpen-related issue. I think it's a little bit of a little bit of A, a little bit of B, right? Like we've seen some elbow issues with the Red Sox staff. Not saying it's Andrew Bailey's fault, but obviously when you start throwing more breaking stuff, there's more torque on the elbow. So maybe, I'm not going to say it's a driving factor, but we've seen elbow issues this year more so than in years past. So maybe that's a part of it. I don't necessarily think it's necessarily an endurance issue. I mean, injuries happen to everybody for a wide variety of reasons. Like, did Lucas Giolito wreck his elbow in the preseason because Andrew Bailey's holding it in spring training to throw more breaking stuff? Probably not. Did it just happen? More likely than not, it probably just happened. He hadn't been doing enough work in the offseason under Andrew Bailey's new breaking ball heavy scheme to really do anything to his elbow, in my opinion, as wildly uneducated and unprofessional as it is. Moving forward, I think as much as he may hate it, I really think he's best suited for the bullpen. Hopefully in the years to come, right? Because you figure if this is a legit elbow injury and needs surgery, he's probably out until June of 2025. So you got to think in the offseason they're going to be adding pieces to the rotation, and I just think that especially where like Jansen's probably going to be gone, and they need some guys. I mean, Chris Martin's older, right? Isn't he like in his mid-30s?
Late 30s. I think
Late
he's
30, 36,
37.
30. Okay. So obviously he's not going to be around much longer. I know they've got some other guys, but like there's going to be high leverage, high situation roles to be had in the bullpen. And I think that just given his stuff, yes, he was a very good starter for a month for this team. And I just think that given the need and what will hopefully be a little bit more of an aggressive offseason going into next year, that there just won't be a spot in the rotation. I think that if they were building the rotation correctly, he wouldn't be in the rotation this year. He'd be in the bullpen. I think that they moved him into the rotation, worked on him in the rotation because it was a necessity, not because that's where they thought he was best suited. It's just, he came up through the Yankee system as a starter, tried to be a starter here, didn't have a spot. So it's something he was used to doing. And they're like, look, like we need starters. If you can do it, then we're going to set you up for success. I just think long term he's best suited for the bullpen. I think his stuff's just too good that you can't ignore it. And I just think that between lack of success the last couple of years, injuries this year, I think that the smart move for him is just to relegate him to the bullpen. And even if you got to utilize him for 2 or 3 innings, he's got the endurance to do it. He doesn't just have to be an eighth or a ninth inning guy. He's got that versatility. But I think the bullpen is the best spot for him.
Yeah, well, that's how I would use him. I would use him as that 2 or 3 inning guy, the guy that can come in, pitch twice a week, and be a 3 inning guy.
Yeah,
You know where
I would
you
agree.
know
I don't know as if he has to do that because it's like if they have a high leverage situation and he comes in and he can pitch the eighth and get you out of the jam and turn the ball over to a closer, well now you've got him
Yes,
now he's
yes.
available the night after that. But yeah, I think that's I agree with you. Go ahead.
Kind of using him in the like they've been using Slayton lately this year is where like he's been pitching 2 or 3 times a week, and like yeah, sometimes it's 1 inning, some other times it's been two innings. Getting a and it all obviously will depend on pitch count. We don't need to get into all that, but if he goes and idea it may is it the most is it maximizing his potential? Maybe not. But I'd rather be cautious with his approach and have him long term healthy
Yes.
than force the habit and have him get injured. So, like you said, we'll see how the offseason goes. And in an ideal scenario, they don't even have him chalked into the lineup to the rotation because they have better options.
Right.
Um, but I would like to see him in the bullpen, and I've been saying this since like 2 years now. That's his best spot. I think that could be where he can stay the most healthy and be the best version of himself. I think he could be a lights out reliever. He showed that his first
Yep.
year here, and he can come in and the general concept is uh, you can be if you struggle as a starter, you often turn to the bullpen because maybe you can't make it deep into games and you can go into the bullpen and be that lights out guy for 1 inning at a time. It's a little easier to do. We kind of felt like that was the same situation with Hauk. He has been in every way better than everyone could have hoped for. Andrew Bailey has done wonders to his approach. He's being significantly more diverse in his approach on the mound and what he's throwing, and then he's changing up his approach as the game goes on. Is one thing I've noticed significantly, and it's helping him go deep into games. And on top of that, he's been doing it efficiently. I know last night he threw 94 pitches over 7 innings, and through
Pretty damn good.
yeah, and I mean, you really can't ask for much better than that. He has been phenomenal for the Red Sox so far. So going into the offseason, I think there's still a long ways to go this season, but we have him chalked in as a middle of the rotation, potentially, but better than that for the Red Sox in the coming years. But for Whitlock, like we've both said now, I think the best spot for him is the bullpen. Put him in the bullpen when he gets back, and whether that's to start the 25 season or mid 2025, or with Tommy John, who knows, there's a chance he misses all of next year. But whenever he does come back, get him, get him in the bullpen and put him in a situation where he can just go out there for 1 or 2 innings, go full force, and be a consistent, present for this team. I think we both in agreement that we rather a dominant Garrett Whitlock in the bullpen than a risk at this point putting him in the bullpen in the rotation, and even if he's good in the rotation, risking the injury that seems to be coming every year with him.
I would agree. You kind of hit the nail on the head with that one. And especially where, not to go back to this, but especially where I think there's going to be ample opportunity for him to be a legitimate bullpen arm because of because of the guys that are either not going to be here or guys that are getting older. I think that he has the stuff. He could absolutely be our closer next year if he wants to adopt that role. Would be nice if it worked out. I think that's the best spot for him. And hopefully the Red Sox can recognize it. And Andrew Bailey seems to at least have his head screwed on straight, and so I trust him to make the right decision for what's going to put Garrett Whitlock in the best position to succeed.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's where we'll leave it off with the Whitlock talk. I do want to finish this up. We're 42 minutes in, but I wanted to finish this up with a little bit of Patriots talk. Uh, Side note: Drake May's at the Celtics tonight. There's some video with him meeting with Tatum backstage. Um, the dude got to the Celtics game like an hour and a half before the Celtics started, which was pretty funny to see.
Well,
Um,
with Joe Biden in town, you have to do that, otherwise, because you got to beat the traffic.
yeah, that's true. That's true. It looks like Tatum was giving him a signed jersey and stuff like that. But OTs have happened. Rookie mini camp happened last week, and then the early start of OTAs has started. It's tough to judge much of anything from these, and you can't take any basically performance or report or anything like that with too much of a grain of too much depth into it and overthinking it. But what have been your overall feeling of what you've heard from rookie minicamp and OTAs, and how are you feeling about the Patriots as of late?
Um, I mean, from what I've seen, there's been some kind of behind the scenes type videos that have cropped up on X and other social media sites. The one thing you shared it was him talking to Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. I'm never going to call him Javon. All year I'm going to call him Javon because that's what it looks like to me. But Javon Baker, just talking to him about if he has to scramble out of the pocket, working back through their routes, working the sidelines, stuff like that, and just picking their brains and understanding what they're looking at and what they're seeing and what they're doing. And it's nice to see that. Obviously, they're three rookies. Two of those three guys were premium draft picks. Obviously Polk was a high second round pick. Drake May goes third overall, right? Baker's a fourth round pick. I feel like we kind of got a steal with him at that spot, but those are guys that are going to be around hopefully for a long time. So it's nice to see the chemistry kind of come up pretty early, where they're already talking about how they see a defense, if a play breaks down, what they want to see each other do, get that camaraderie. And it's nice to see that May already has an understanding that Polk knows what he's doing on routes, and having a guy that knows what he's doing is probably more than half the battle. Take a guy like Tyquan Thornton, all the talent in the world, probably has no clue what it means to work back towards the ball on a comeback route.
Or
So
not take 12 steps.
You're right,
No,
or take a month to break down your route and then snap the 5 yard out route. Um, it's nice to see that. I see a lot of video. I don't know if it's on purpose, but a lot of the video seems to be Drake May doing footwork drills with the pads on the ground, working in and out, side to side, front to back, and then throwing to a target. Um, I like that Mayo's kind of getting his hands dirty. He's getting in there, like, not to say that Bill wouldn't have done this in the early part of his career, but I don't remember seeing any video in the last like 5-10 years of Bill talking to an offensive lineman on what they're supposed to do with their hand position, and then standing behind like the padded offensive lineman on the board. What do they call it? The thing that with the lineman push back, like the lineman track. I would
yeah,
like Bill's not going to line up and throw his body into the fake offensive lineman pad and show an offensive lineman how to break through a block, or show a defensive lineman how to break through a block. Just not to say that's not an indictment on Bill. I just think it's nice that Mayo's he's getting in there. He's showing these guys what he wants them to do, like what the motion's supposed to be. You can tell he's building a relationship with these guys, which I think we expected out of Mayo. Younger guy, was he 37? So he can relate to these guys on a level that at this point last year, like Bill wasn't connecting with 20-year-old kids. On day-to-day basis type stuff, where I think Mayo can do that. So it's nice to see him, getting in there and telling him like, hey, like, have a good day at practice, like get your work in, but be great today. That kind of stuff you like to see. The physical stuff from May, we've seen it. Throws on the run. I think throwing a ball into a net, fine, whatever. But it's nice to see that they're emphasizing getting the footwork down, and trying to make that a point of emphasis to make sure that he's good to go. When he gets the call, whether it's this year, next year. Obviously, he's going to be ready um, for I want to call it spring training, for preseason. Preseason game one. Like, don't blink. It's just over 2 months away. August 7th, I think, is their first preseason game, if I'm not mistaken.
something like that.
Um, it's something like that. It's usually the first week in August, which is 9 weeks, 10 weeks away. Training camp starts up in a little bit, so getting him ready is good. It's just nice to see the guys in pads, and getting their work in, because I think it's going to be a tough year. But it's going to be a tough year in the sense of we're rebuilding and trying to figure out what this team is going to look like for the next 9 to 14 years, not the next couple years. I know they're kind of building for 2025. They want to make sure that these guys are ready to go, but it'll be a tough year for different reasons, because we're looking for signs of optimism for bright spots in the future, kind of like we were when Matt Jones was here, to see if like he could be the next guy. But yeah, I mean, encouraging stuff. Drake May's showing that even though he's new guy in the block, he's yucking it up with the rookies, talking to them about X's and O's, and what to do when they read certain defenses. So exciting all around, and be nice to see them starting to hit each other, and um, get a training camp going here in what, I think like 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean it. To jump on a few points. The Polk talk. I mean, we saw comps from the beginning, or the main comp everyone saw was said that he was a more athletic Jacoby Myers, and people were saying that as a negative thing. And so when you brought up the conversation of like Polk knowing where he needs to be in his routes, and being a good route runner and all that, if he is a more athletic Jacoby Myers, that could be a very good football player. Jacoby
Yeah.
Myers is a good wide receiver. The biggest downfall for Myers is he's small. Well, I want to call him small, but he's not big and strong, and he's not very fast and quick. He's just
No.
really good at the position. And those are I love those type of receivers, the guys that know the position, and can find success within that. And that's what you see in like you saw in guys like Jacoby Myers, and you see in like Cooper Cup or Adam Thielen. These guys are just magicians as route runners. Keenan Allen's another one that comes to mind. Like, they're not overly quick, overly fast. They're just really good at the position. So if you're taking Jacoby Myers and adding more athleticism to him, ability to go up and get the ball a little bit better, the ability to, maybe outrun and get that extra step on a receiver on a crossing route or on a post route, that is the opportunity to be a very good receiver. So, I'm excited about him. Obviously, we've talked about Baker. He is a lot. He opened his mouth a little bit and kind of made it his presence felt from day one. So he has a little
Yeah,
bit to prove. In terms of Drake May, for what we could have expected in on the field, like I did hear that they were specifically working on footwork drills a lot. The last few practices that they had with May there. Um, I don't know if that is the specific idea because they know May needs to improve, or if they would have done that regardless. I think I lean more towards they would have done that regardless because this is the time of year where you try to work on a lot of your fundamentals
yeah,
and try to clean up your game so that when training camp comes around, you can more focus on play install and prepping for real game situations and all that.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean, Tom
so
Brady. Tom Brady was doing those footwork drills in the middle of the prime of his career. So I think you're right. I think it's a little bit of they would have done it anyway. But I think that because that's like, I mean, not, and I don't think it's a huge issue, but probably because that's probably his biggest like fundamental flaw. Making it a point of emphasis, is dual purpose. Serves a dual purpose. Like get him ready, but also it's like any quarterback would be going through those drills because that's what
yeah,
quarterbacks
that
have to
and
do.
the media will make sure to film those ones and talk about them to emphasize that they happen too. So
Right.
we don't
Exactly.
see every
Yeah.
drill that they do at these games, but on the field, like we haven't seen a ton from him or heard a ton from him. Like he's been seemingly the QB3 so far. Brissett seems to be getting the 1 reps. Zappy seems to be getting the 2 reps. I still think by training camp Zappy will not be here, or maybe early in training camp he's let go. Mayo hinted at that they only want 3 quarterbacks for camp. Gave a little hint towards that. I cannot see a world where they would cut Milton before training camp. That makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
Zappy is conceivably the guy looking from the outside in. But for Zappy himself, I mean, for May himself, we talked about there was a little bit of blind questions on his leadership ability pre-draft. He's shown so far in what we've seen limited. You don't want to overlook it or think too much about it, but he's looking like he's taken the stride of being the leader of the rookie class and kind of really teaming up. We talked about with Baker and Polk, and then one thing I really love to see, and it's minor things, but like he's made an extended effort already to really start to connect with the city of Boston.
Yes.
And I think that could be a very big bonus. The one thing that I emphasized on Twitter was he went to the Celtics game. He didn't sit in I mean, he went to the Bruins game. He didn't sit in a suite. He sat on the glass in the state in the rink with all the other fans. Immersed in the vibe of the chaos that is a Bruins crowd.
Yep.
He experienced that firsthand, and it's good for him to experience that type of things. And then we see him here tonight in Boston. Um, Obviously, he got there a little bit early. Whenever he shows up, everyone knows that there's going to be headlines everywhere that he's there, that he's meeting, Tatum. He's getting really to know the city. I think that's really important to really kind of create that connection with the city and get a backing of the fans to build up excitement for yourself and for the fan
Yeah.
base. I think it's really nice to see.
Yeah. And
Uh,
he's sitting courtside tonight, and I think it's cool too because his entire, I mean, him included, right? He was a two letter varsity athlete in high school, basketball and football. His older brother Luke is a national champion at North Carolina from 7 years ago. So I think that it makes it easy for him to be a Celtics fan because he's a huge basketball guy. And so you know to immerse himself in the city, and he feels like just like the everyday kind of guy. just like the way he talks, he carries himself. He doesn't. I don't get the impression, and this is not an indictment on anybody else, but I don't get the impression that he's got this like smug attitude about him that he's like, I was the number 3 overall pick, and I was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, and I went to this, premier blue blood program in college and this, that, and the other thing that I think other guys have had. And I think that certain guys have earned the right to have that kind of swag. He just doesn't strike me as that guy. He's super laid back. He just loves the fact that he's there. I'm sure he's going to yuck it up with the fans, and just be part of the experience and soak it in. And, he'll probably give Tatum or Brown a high five or a slap on the ass on the way by after a nice play. I think that's just kind of the guy that he is. And it's nice to see that, he's a sports guy. He just likes sports, loves sports, and he just wants to be part of it. And it loves the fact that the Bruins had a good year. The Celtics are 8 wins away from an NBA title. I think he just enjoys being part of the success of the city.
Yeah, and when you talk about like just being a guy, in the organization, stuff like that, we saw Drake May. The picture went viral very quickly of him and Tom Brady the other day.
Didn't
Brady
think that
met with
didn't think that was real. It looked very fake on the internet because
the
Brady's like smiling, looking in one direction, and Drake May is like not nearly as tan as Tom Brady. It didn't look like
yeah, it
a
looked like
real
it could have
picture.
been photoshopped together a little bit, but
Yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
think
he met with
your Photoshop skills were A+ that day.
Brady met with a bunch of the top draft picks, and he, there was videos of it, of, the things he talked about in large part were, players these days, it's all about me. It's about my brand, it's about my social media and all that. Like, I think when you brought up the comment about, Mays is just a sports guy, he just seems like one of those dudes that just like loves sports, loves being around, isn't like the attention guy. I think that's a little bit where he differs from a guy like Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, from the moment he was at USC to now, every time you hear him talk, it's kind of like me.
It's
I'm the
it's
dude.
it's like that scene out of Talladega Nights. He's like, I just wake up and piss excellence, and I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah, yeah. And Caleb, he gives off that vibe, whether he's saying it directly or the kind of a little bit of an attitude towards it about it. And not to say that can't work. Um, but it could also rub people a little bit the wrong way.
Yep.
So for May, I think the ideal thing that came in and is we see him just kind of, we talked about just immersing himself in the city, embracing the situation, not feeling like he's better than the situation, not feeling like he's better than a QB competition with Jacoby Brissett type of situation, and just coming in here and just playing football, trying to improve and be that dude that can be so easily liked. And don't overthink it. And I think it comes from the competitiveness. He's the youngest brother of, is it 4 of them or 3 of them? I think 4.
Four of who?
He has 3 brothers. Is it 3 brothers or 2 brothers?
It's 3. I thought.
3.
Yeah, and he's the youngest, I think.
Yeah, he is, and so
Yeah, yeah.
he has athletes like for brothers, like you said. One brother was on the UNC team that won the Natty about years ago,
Yep.
and then he has another one I think that plays right now, or played last year or something like that. And so like he just comes from a competitive family that loves sports, and I just want him to kind of keep that mindset. Is just dude, just be a guy. What players don't realize, some players don't realize, is you don't have to tell people you're the guy to be the guy, especially in sports. Just show on the field that you're the guy, and the rest doesn't matter. Which is why I think we loved Brady, and so many people loved and respected Brady over the years. Is like everybody knew he was that dude. Like when it came to football, he was that dude. But he didn't get off the field going to the podium and be like, I'm that dude.
Yeah. And
You know,
what's funny too, just to talk about his brothers real quick, when he got drafted, when they pranked him
Yeah, I did see
when they did the
that.
prank video. You can tell that they're just a fun loving bunch, and they like to rag on each other, and like they're competitive against each other. So like you said, Luke won a national championship, and then his other brother, um, Cole, was on the 2017 Florida Gators College World Series national championship team. So he's got, he didn't win a national championship. Like North Carolina's not going to ever win a college football national championship, is in, probably in my lifetime. But two of the brothers have won a national title, and now he's the only one playing professional sports, and I just it'll be nice to see them support him, and it's nice to see that it's just different with the May family. It seems like that they just want to be around a game that they love, and support their family members, and just be a bunch of fun loving guys that just are really good at sports, and they're just super competitive and having fun out there.
Yeah, and going back to kind of May, and that's what all he needs to be. It's just like, again, you can be that dude without telling people you're that dude, and you don't have to come
Yep.
out with the cockiness around it. So just continue to come out and just like immerse yourself in the city. Build relationships, experiences, create a connection with the fan base, and just come out and play football. Just trying to improve every day, and he's on the right path of that. So one other subject I want to touch up before we finish here was bringing up Mayo and stuff like that. Um, you can get a sense, and from what people have been saying, reporters and what they're seeing and stuff, this is new to Mayo. He's never ran his own practices. Like it's going to be a learning process
Yeah.
as it would for any first time head coach. The level of experience that you have as a coach prior really, there's like whether you have 10 years of experience prior to being a head coach or 5 years of experience prior to being a head coach, those first dozen practices are probably going to be a little bit shaky on your end. And so you know it, we've seen players come out already. We saw Juju. Speaking of Juju, he said that he played at 60% last year. Now that he's 100, now he's at 100%. So we'll see where he takes from him, and we can get at that as a later date. But Juju made the comment that the vibes in the locker room are immaculate, are significantly better from last year. We're seeing Keon White, I believe, came out and just talked about like things. Mayo isn't as much of a hard ass, but yet he's still like get the work, like just get the work done.
Y-
Christian Barmore has been very vocal about how much he loves playing for Mayo on the defensive side. Josh Uche has said the same thing. So we've seen players be vocal about it. It's going to be a learning experience for him, but like you've said, I think he's done a pretty good job with the media so far, and kind of being more open. It was kind of fun seeing him be part of the schedule release and stuff like that. These
Yeah,
are things that,
I thought the video was funny. It's Belichick never would have done that.
yeah, like we're already experiencing and seeing things that it's just so weird to see as a Patriots fan. Like that would have never
Yeah.
happened. Mayo being mic'd up for practice, like that really would have never happened. So all these little things, in the end, like winning is all that matters. So like if he comes out and sucks as a coach and the Patriots suck for the next few years and he gets fired, like none of this will matter. But for what we've seen so far, it's fun to see. So I'm
Yep.
excited to see him kind of grow into this role over the next few months. I think he'll slowly find his more comfort zone in the situation, and I'm this is when they drafted Mac, I wouldn't probably have said it publicly. I was excited because I did like Mac as a prospect, but like I knew to myself that he had. Well, I did say it at the time, but that he had a little bit of a limited upside. So
Yeah.
when he was drafted, we were kind of like, all right, like I like him, but like, is the best he's going to be Kirk Cousins type of thing? And
Yeah,
is that the best the Patriots going to
and
be?
that you needed to build around him. I don't get that nearly as much as I do with Drake May.
Yeah,
Like
and that's what
every
I'm saying.
quarterback
Like,
has to have a good situation, but I don't get the vibe that May needs to have, you know, a situation like what Brock Purdy found himself in. Like Drake May doesn't need that.
Yeah. Well, he's experienced in at UConn, at UConn at UNC, playing with inferior talent. But I
Yes.
it's more just like the upside of what we see. Like I this is probably the most excited I've been about the Patriots, uh, maybe since 2018, 2018. And even
Yeah.
just like level of true excitement, it might go further than that.
I
Like,
mean, I
but
mean, yeah, real excitement. I mean, probably. I mean, 2017 they were coming off the Falcons Super Bowl. I mean, they were very, very good the year they lost to Philadelphia. Just kind of knowing that it was like, all right, like we're still here. Like it's the end of Tom Brady's run with the Patriots. It can't last forever.
yeah,
So
but it's a different type of excitement right now. Like so, like
yes,
with Brady and all them, it was kind of like it was always excitement, but it was just more expectation type of excitement. Uh, and we've obviously experienced 4 or 5 losing seasons now, and so and I know we went 10-7 and stuff like that one year, but in a general sense, some losing seasons, and now we're in a situation where the meter's kind of facing up for the first time in the last couple of years, and I think we all kind of feel like the upside is very real, and we can see
yes,
the vision in which you know and how we view Drake and how you and I like. I genuinely think that Drake May can be a superstar quarterback. Will he be
yes.
that? We don't know. I don't know. Like we'll
Like
see.
time will tell. I did not
Yeah.
get that feeling that Mac Jones would be a superstar quarterback. I felt like it was always if you could build around him, he'd have success. But I'm right
Yeah,
there with you.
he could be a Brock Purdy, he could be a Kirk Cousins, something like that. Now it's like, can he be a Drake May? I mean, can he be a Josh Allen? Can he be,
Justin Herbert.
I don't want to throw Patrick Mahomes in there, but like Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, can he be those type of guys where it's like you're a solidified top 10 QB, and in Allen and Mahomes' situation, top 3 QBs.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's just kind of the level of excitement. And again, it doesn't mean it's obviously going to happen. We don't know. He could bust. He could be a decent guy, whatever. But this is as eager as I've been for training camp, just because I want to see him in some preseason games and stuff like that. Um, and just as a whole, like it's exciting. It's
It is.
exciting going. I'm eager for training camp and to get things going.
Yeah. One last note before we start to wrap things up. Woj dropped a note today that Porzingis looks like he's possibly coming back for Game 4 against
Yeah,
the Pacers.
I did just see
He
that.
said it in different words. It was like he could be back for Game 4, however you want to spin that. But it looks like if he's ready to go, it looks like Game 4 will be the earliest we'll see him.
Yeah, and that's good. Like that's fine. Like the Celtics should be up at bare minimum 2-1 against the Pacers at that point.
Yep, if
And
not
if he
3-0,
yeah, and if he's ready to go, if they're up 3-0, play him for
10,
10
15
minutes,
minutes. Yeah.
yeah, and get him going. If they feel like they need him, like maybe they push him a little bit. But even if it's like 2-1 against the Pacers, ease him back in. 10-15 minutes of Porzingis is better than no minutes of Porzingis. So
Yep.
it's yeah,
Agreed.
so it's really just kind of ease him back into the mix and get him ready, and hopefully he's 120% ready to go for the NBA Finals,
Yep.
assuming they make it that far. So,
Absolutely.
but that'll be it for tonight. The Celtics are starting any minute now, so it's kind of good timing. We can jump off and watch that. Any last words, statements, takes?
No, I mean not Boston sports related, but I get pretty geeked up over the College World Series. College baseball playoffs start this week. Um, so I'll be watching that. I've got my teams that I watch. But
Who do you want to win
excited.
it?
I mean, I'm a Vanderbilt guy. They had a pretty down year. They're in the they won the well, they're winning the first round matchup in the SEC tournament, which is single elimination. So they have to win to keep going. They'll probably be a 2 or a 3 seed in a region somewhere. They're not going to host this year. Um, I mean, it's really tough to bet against Arkansas. They have all the pieces, led by Hagen Smith, who's a fringe top 5 pick in this year's MLB draft. You know, he's been their Friday night lefty the entire season, Friday night starter, but yeah, lefty, just absolute stud. I mean, hard to bet against them. I mean, the SEC is loaded every year. You know, it wouldn't shock me if Tennessee or Texas A&M win it. But you know, I just think it's hard to pick against Arkansas this year. They're just that good.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I mean, so that's. I'm not a big college sports guy, and so like I don't follow it a ton. But where's LSU in all this?
They were the last team, second to last team to qualify for the SEC tournament. They were the 11th seed this year. They had a pretty down year. Um, I mean, not surprisingly, I think 4 of their 5 like best players last year all got drafted or graduated. Tommy Tanks, Tommy White is still there. They beat Georgia, number 11 team in the country this year. Earlier today to keep their season alive. The general consensus is that they'd have to go pretty far in the SEC tournament to get an at-large bid into the tournament. They're in the double elimination round. Anything can happen. They get Kentucky tomorrow, and then if they lose, they would get the Arkansas South Carolina loser in the losers bracket. So I mean, they have a shot to make some noise possibly, but they've got a long uphill battle if they want to get an at-large bid to the tournament this year.
Fair. Fair. All right. Yep. That'll be it for tonight.
All right.
Go Celtics.
Go Celtics.
Hopefully, when we're back next week, the Celtics are. I mean, the series could be either close to over or over altogether, depending on when we record next week. But until then, go Celtics, go Red Sox, and I guess go Patriots and Bruins, even though Bruins lost. So
Go
all
off
right,
Cam Neely.
yeah, spend some money.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
All right. Have a good night, guys.